So now we are just one day away from the NFL draft. And now with more draft capital from the Aaron Rodgers trade, this is going to make the draft just as exciting as last year. We had 2 first-round picks. This year we have 2 second-round picks. Last year we had 2 first, 2 seconds. This year 1 first, 2 seconds. But I want to give my prediction about how I think the first round is going to go for Green Bay. Exactly what happens, exactly the player I think they'll draft. But we will see if I'm correct. Please drop your prediction in the comments down below. We'll see if any of us have are somehow in tune with Brian Gutekunst, what he's thinking. Will we? Any of us be? We'll see. Will he shock us all? Potentially. It'll be fun to see what he does, and I'll be covering it all on this channel and also in my newsletter, which you can subscribe to in the description down below. So here's what I think is going to happen. Now the Packers, of course, have the number 13 pick instead of the number 15 pick because in the Rodgers trade, we swapped pick number 15 with pick number 13, which does take us up a few different spots. But when we look at this draft, there are 4 quarterbacks who most people believe will be drafted in the first round, potentially 5. But if you look at the top 4, we have Bryce Young, who seems like he'll go number 1. CJ Stroud, who there's been lots of noise floating around, different things coming out the past couple of weeks. A while ago, it looked like he would go number 2. Now there are some ideas that he could drop a little further. We have Anthony Richardson from Florida, who seems like he has super high upside, but still a little, uncertain there with what he will develop into. Super talented athlete, but people sort of question his development and where he is right now. And then we have Will Levis from Kentucky as well. Some think all those guys could go in the top 10, but I do think that there's a chance when the Packers get to 13 that potentially maybe Anthony Richardson or Will Levis could be available there. Now, I'm not saying, my prediction is not that Brian Gutekunst takes a quarterback. If that happened at 13, I think all of us would lose our minds. That would be insane. I do not think that'll happen, even though I do think the Packers will take a QB later in the draft. Brian Gutekunst has said recently he wants to have 3 QBs on the roster. Currently, there are only 2, and the Packers met with 3 or 4 different QBs. But this is what I think is going to happen. With the Packers picking at 13, and my prediction that at least one of those quarterbacks will be around 13, I think that a team is going to trade with the Packers for the number 13 pick. There are 3 options that I think are possible. I'll show you which one I think is going to happen, my prediction. But I think when you look at a few different teams behind the Packers later in the first round. First off, we have the Commanders, who have picked number 16. Their current QBs, Sam Howell, Jacoby Brissett, Jake Fromm, not great options there. We have the Lions at 18. Yes, they do have Jared Goff. I think he's a fine quarterback, but I think at some point soon, maybe it's in this draft, they draft a QB of the future. They could sit him behind Jared Goff for a couple of years and transition to him in the next few seasons. And then we have the Buccaneers at number 19, who do have Baker Mayfield as their quarterback currently. I don't think he's their long-term option. I think he's going to be more of a bridge quarterback for Tampa Bay. So I think any of those teams could want to trade up with Green Bay if there's a quarterback available at that point. But my prediction is this. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers trade their number 19 pick and their second-round pick to move up to number 13 with the Packers. If we do look at drafttech.com, they sort of give values to every single draft pick, and you can sort of figure out what trades could make sense based on how these draft picks are valued. So according to Draft Tech, the Packers number 13 pick is worth 1,150 points. The Buccaneers number 19 pick is worth 875 points. But then if we look at the Buccaneers second round pick, which is number 50 overall, it's valued at 400. So that's why I think the Buccaneers, if they want to trade up to 13 with Green Bay, they will probably need to trade us their second round pick as well, which would mean the Packers could drop back to number 19, still have a first round pick, and then add another second round pick, giving them 1 first and 3 seconds, which I think could be very smart, and I think the Buccaneers trade up to take a quarterback. So that is my prediction. We'll see if it happens. I don't think the Packers are going to stay put at 13. Is it possible? Of course, depending on who's there. But I don't think Brian Gutekunst would be, would have an issue with trading back and getting more draft capital. That means we have more talent here in Green Bay to build around Jordan Love, can fill more holes overall. And now, of course, with the Packers having pick number 19, this is who I predict they will pick at 19. I believe the Packers will pick tight end Darnell Washington from Georgia with pick number 19. When we look at the Packers tight end room, there's no doubt we need to add some tight end talent here. Robert Tonyan is now on the Chicago Bears. We also no longer have Mercedes Lewis on the roster, which means there's a big need at tight end. And when we look at tight end Darnell Washington, he's 6'7", 269 pounds, runs a 4.64 40. So not only is Darnell Washington, a very good blocker in the run game, which the Packers could really use with Marcedes Lewis gone, but he can also get it done in the receiving game as well. And so I think to add him to this Packers team would be, incredible. He's sort of similar to Marcedes Lewis in the ability to block, but I think that he could be much better than Marcedes Lewis ever was when it comes to being a receiving threat with 4.64 speed. If you compare it to Marcedes Lewis had 4.8 speed. And when we look at the Packers, we know they love to take Georgia players. The past 2 seasons, it's been all Georgia players in the first round. Eric Stokes in 2021 from Georgia, Quay Walker and Devontae Wyatt, both Packers first-round draft picks from last year, Georgia. Where does Darnell Washington play? Where did he play? Georgia. So that's why I think the need makes sense. The spot makes sense at 19. I think that that's not a bad spot to get Darnell Washington. Packers get a big need. They get a huge red zone weapon for Jordan Love. 6'7" guy that Jordan Love can just sit back there. There's Darnell Washington, touchdown. I just see it happening. I think it can happen. So that is my prediction. The Packers trade back from 13 to 19 and draft Darnell Washington. We will see if that happens. Obviously, there's tons of other possible scenarios, and there are lots of other things that I would be satisfied with. But that is my prediction for what happens tomorrow night in Green Bay. So we will see what happens. I will cover on this channel tomorrow's first-round pick. I'll also cover it in my newsletter, so you can subscribe to that to receive draft content throughout the weekend as we move into the draft. But please, as I already said, feel free to comment your prediction in the comments down below, and we'll see if any of us are right, if any of us are accurate on what Brian Gutekunst is going to do. But I'm pumped that we're finally here, that we're only 1 day away from the draft, because we've been looking for months at these potential scenarios, and tomorrow we'll finally see the plan that Brian Gutekunst has to build around Jordan Love as we move on from Rodgers and move into the future, as we move into 2023 with Jordan Love as the Packers starting QB. But thank you so much for watching. Feel free to subscribe if you haven't already. That's all I have for this video, and I'll see you guys next time.